and welcome to the CU Sports Magazine. I'm Todd Geary.
And I'm Andrew Rivera. Well, let's talk a little basketball as the rest of the league gets set for postseason play. Wonder what that's like, Todd. That must be something. Conference champions Missouri get to do just a little more bragging before they go dancing next week. Not only did the Tigers go undefeated in the Big Eight for the first time in over 20 years, but it turns out they've got the best coach in the conference as well. That's right, Missouri's feisty Norm Stewart was voted the Associated Press Big Eight Coach of the Year. Bill Marolt is reportedly protesting the decision, insisting that Joe Harrington should have won the award. Todd?
Well, Andrew, pass out the cigars. Bill McCartney is once again a proud father. It's not a boy and it's not a girl this time. As a matter of fact, it's a whole bunch of very large men. That's right, Mac's defensive line has been ranked #1 in the country by the Sporting News College Football Magazine. On top of that, CU's been ranked in the Football News preseason poll #1 ahead of Florida and Michigan. If CU and Michigan stay close in the polls, there could be a head-to-head battle later in the year for the #1 spot. CU travels to Michigan to play the Wolverines on September 24th, and we'll have more football news for you later in the show. Andrew?
Well, let's talk a little basketball. Of course, CU playing today in the Big Eight tournament. We're going to have those highlights for you in just a little bit. Close game, nice game against Missouri. But first, let's talk Donnie Boyce and his performance against Oklahoma State. Really incredible.
Incredible. That's all you can say. He scored 46 points, and we're going to give you all the good stuff that Donnie Boyce did a little bit later in these highlights. But right now, let's go ahead and go out to Oklahoma, and we'll show you these first half highlights. Not quite a full house on hand in Stillwater to see the Cowboys take on the lowly Buffs. OSU started out strong. Brooks Thompson, the former Denver Prep star, started out hot and only got hotter as the game went on. And yes, Big Country shows us he can shoot the J. Reeves tries to get the hook here, but he gets fouled on the play, and Andrew, his distant cousin, on hand to see him play. And then Big Country buries the free throw, and then Manzier couldn't wait. He begins his shooting frenzy as he buries the 16-footer. The Buffs did not guard the outside shot. Burley and his teammates made them pay deeply, and Thermal back in town to check out his alma mater. Here Burley takes it inside and puts it in over Dean. And yes, CU did score. Mark Dean here with a nice fake, turnaround, and the bucket. Wide open shots and great passes helped the Cowboys maintain a respectable lead throughout the game. CU had a hard time stopping Reeves inside. As a matter of fact, they had a hard time stopping everybody. Ted Allen with a Reeves there. Here comes Ted Allen. There he is. He finds the Fab Frosh, Greg Jensen, and he doesn't miss the jumper. And then Thompson finds Big Country underneath, and deja vu, Andrew. More passing. Brooks Thompson. More Manzier from three-point land. He hit everything from the outside, and more headaches for Joe Harrington. And Donnie Boyce here finds Mark Dean in the paint, and Mark Dean puts it in. Joe Harrington saying, "Where is Donnie? We need Donnie." Well, Joe, here comes Donnie. Boyce scored 46 points, the most ever in Colorado history by one player, second ever. He established Colorado records by scoring 20 consecutive points and 31 in a half. He also set Big Eight records for the highest percentage of points scored in a conference game by one player. He hit 46 of Colorado's 68 for 67.6% of CU's total points. And Oklahoma State coach Eddie Sutton said, "I don't know if I can remember a player ever having a finer game." And finally, Ted Allen hit one free throw to top it off for the Buffs, Andrew.
Todd, you'll have to excuse me. I'm feeling a little seasick right now.
You should
You're going to have to carry on without me.
That's exactly what it was like, though. Donnie Boyce, in the second half there, he just hit everything. He was popping threes over everybody. It was incredible. If you had a chance to watch the game, I was really impressed.
The sad thing is that he scored all those points, and CU still got blown out.
Yeah, it is a sad thing.
Sign of a bad team, unfortunately.
67% of the points, that's a lot of percentage. CU just got done playing Missouri, and Andrew, why don't you tell us what that was all about?
Okay, let's go out to Kansas City, show you those highlights. Quite a game, folks. Early first half, Allen looking and finding Mark Dean low. 17-16, CU leading it early. Normie Stewart not concerned quite yet. Melvin Booker was on early for Mizzou. He nails the tray for the Tigers. It was Pete Hefty, are you kidding me, to the rescue for three. Then another Fab Frosh, Fred Edmonds, with the short jumper. CU actually got some calls in this one. They call it travel here. No foul, but believe me, the refs would get their revenge later. Normie, not to worry. CU showing their scrappy side here towards the end of the first half, hanging in with the mighty Tigers. No one ends up scoring here. CU trailed at the half, 29-26. And Todd, close game early on. A lot of people thought that CU would just kind of fall apart in the second half like they have before, as we shall soon see. That was not the case.
And they did. They stayed with Missouri tight through the whole first half. They were only down by 2, 4, 6 points at any one time in the game. And I think Joe Harrington's player is really surprising the runner-up for the Big 8 Coach of the Year.
Yeah. Anyways. Okay, let's go out back to Kansas City for the second half highlights. Pete Hefty, again, are you kidding me? Nails the three. Pete Hefty, and that brings a tender smile to the injured Donnie Boyce. Oh, how sweet. Then Golgard taking it strong to the hoop, trying to prove that there is more to CU than just Donnie Boyce. He ties it at 33-all. Then Dean taking it coast to coast, and the soft touch. Tigers respond on the break, and Booker would get the layup. Mizzou up by 5. Joe, you actually have a chance to win this one. No dream. And you can thank senior Mark Dean. The feed from Jensen. And a nice move. He will get the deuce. Stewart starting to point fingers. He says, Javon, we need you to score. Javon says, okay, coach, watch this. And then Melvin Booker says, coach, watch me. I can do that too. He gets the hoop. Tigers lead by 5 with 3 minutes to go. Allen, are you kidding me? All these people stepping up. See you pulling out all the stops. Allen gets the 3. Then the defense steps up. Mr. Hustle, Golgard forces a turnover. Edmonds goes up ahead. CU now down by 1, under 2 minutes to go, but Javon Crudup again as Allen fakes the flop, and Crudup gets the hoop. Allen answers, listen closely, glass. Yep, he called it. The 3 ties the game. Folks, this game is going down to the wire, and both coaches know it. Final play. Game is all tied up. Melvin Booker driving, gets by Hefty. Clean rejection by Fred Edmonds. Allen flies toward the ball, and they call a foul. We told you the refs would get the revenge. They did. Harrington is absolutely incensed. O'Linney calmly and coolly steps up to the line, nails both free throws. Harrington showing his calm, cool demeanor. Last play of the game now. Fran Dean launches it. Length of the court. Dean gets it, puts up the shot, and no good. CU loses it 64-62. As you can see, Joe Harrington took this loss well.
Oh, very well. He didn't even in that last break there. He wasn't even talking to his players in the huddle. He was sitting there, standing on the sideline, yelling at the refs for about 3 minutes. It was vintage Joe Harrington.
I tell you what, though, a very exciting game. No one expected CU to come even close. They were predicted to lose this game by 17. That was the line. Anyway, CU did not win the game, but they gained a lot of respect from around the league.
They certainly did. And when you're playing with a player like Javon Crudup from Missouri, he is excellent, all Big 8 player. And it's very difficult to shut. He's almost like a big country, very hard to shut down in the paint.
As well as Melvin Booker and some other players. So CU drops a tight game. Unfortunately, their season is over, but maybe, who knows, they might have some momentum going into next year. Well, last week, Donnie Boyce, as we told, he scored 46 points against Oklahoma State. Now you might be asking yourself, how does someone score such an obscene number? As CU Sports Magazine reporter Dirk Martin tells us, it's all about physics.
I did a real big shot up. I want to make sure I get good enough jump on the floor. Then I didn't want to follow through with my shot and release the ball nice and smooth.
Okay, little tape trouble there, so hopefully we'll try and get that to you later. Time for our first break here on the CU Sports Magazine. Stay with us, lots more to come. Back right after this.
This is just one of the many parts you can play as a young Red Cross volunteer. Volunteer and play your part.
Of all the weapons used in the world in the last 40 years, none had more power than this one.
Welcome back to the CU Sports Magazine, along with Todd Geary. I'm Andrew Rivera. Todd.
Andrew, after CU's disappointing loss today at Missouri, as we just saw, Joe Harrington needs only to look a very short distance to find that little extra push to put him over the top. That push could come from George Washington star Chauncey Billups. Earlier in the week, Billups was voted to the Parade All-America Boys basketball team. That puts the junior guard in the top 40 players in the country, and that's pretty good, Andrew. There's a lot of basketball players in this country. Billups has averaged 32.5 points a game this year for George Washington, and tonight he will lead his team into the 6A state semifinal game against Cherry Creek at McNichols Arena. So you would like to snatch Billups after he graduates next year. He is a junior this year. Billups would bring a lot of credibility to Joe Harrington's squad, something that squad hasn't seen for quite some time. Andrew?
Okay, well, if you saw a bunch of people running around last weekend, hopefully you didn't start panicking. It was just the CU track team hosting the 53rd annual Potts Invitational track meet. CU dominated in the mile, taking the first 4 spots, with Tim Catalano setting the pace at a mark of 4:21.31. Jake Kleckler, Zach Hancock, and Eric Law rounded out the top 4. A couple of football stars also chipped in for the Buffs, as future NFLer Michael Westbrook and teammate Eric Mitchell combined for a 1-2 finish in the 55-yard dash. The big news of the day actually came from Nebraska, where track goddess Brooke Bauman took first place in the mile of the Cornhusker Invitational. Bauman, as you might recall, suffered a serious viral illness toward the end of the cross-country season, but obviously she is up and running again, and she is now ready for the indoor championships taking place this weekend. Bauman just happens to be one of 7 athletes CU qualified for the championships taking place in Indianapolis. That number is an all-time high for track coach Jerry Quiller. Okay, here's a philosophical question for you. During a men's basketball game, would you characterize the Coors Event Center as half full or half empty? What would you say, Doug?
Half empty, I would have to say.
So you're a pessimist. Well, whether you're
Absolutely.
a pessimist or an optimist, you can take comfort in knowing that there will always be at least 2 fans there whose love for the Buffs is, well, identical. CU has often been accused of having fair-weather fans. A valid criticism? Perhaps. But don't dare make that accusation to the Fitzgerald twins. They've got 54 years of CU ticket stubs to prove otherwise. That's right, Peggy Cobham and Betty Hoover, formerly the Fitzgeralds, have been attending CU sporting events since 1940. That's somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,300 events. Just make sure you don't ask them who the better fan is.
We're equal. That's one thing. We're double fans. Have double the fun. We really enjoy coming together.
Now, you're probably thinking that these are 2 quiet, subdued fans. Let's let Betty, or is it Peggy, correct you.
We have a lot of fun, and we get kind of obnoxious sometimes, but we really have a good time.
You get obnoxious, huh? How do you get obnoxious? Come on, you're a nice lady.
Because we get kind of loud.
You do?
Jumping up and down, hollering, yelling for them. Really? We like it.
Obnoxious, huh? Well, then they probably have some advice for Coach Joe Harrington.
Get a winning team. Yeah. Pretty true.
Well, after 54 years of coming to CU games, you've got to think we're getting tired of it, right? So how long are you 2 going to be Colorado fans?
Well, until we die. That's right. That's right. The good Lord allows us. We're going to be physically able. We'll be coming.
And Todd, Peggy, and Betty actually went out to Salina this past week to watch the women. Too bad they had to go watch a loss.
It's too bad it was, and matter of fact, they were among quite a few people that went to that game. And, of course, 2 of CU's best fans right there. They're at just about every other game.
Yeah, so you had a big contingency out there in Salina, Kansas.
Very
We're going to
big.
show you those highlights a little bit later. So let's take a little break right now, and we'll be back. Lots more on the CU Sports Magazine. Stay with us.
What do you really give when you give blood?
Another summer. Another dance.
How you doing?
Another song. Another hug.
Good game, man. Don't worry about it.
Another date. Another moment.
When you give blood, you give another chance.
Vince, remember how we got our jobs telling people to buckle up?
Yeah, it seems just like yesterday.
Buckle up, baby. Buckle up.
Next.
To buckle or not to buckle?
Next.
Defend.
Next. We are never going to find a safety belt spokesperson.
Let's get buckled!
Yeah, we've helped save thousands of lives.
But some people still don't buckle up. So let's hit it!
You could learn a lot from a dummy. Buckle your safety belt.
The CU women's tennis team took on Oral Roberts this past Wednesday. They were supposed to have a doubleheader against CSU, but due to the weather, it was canceled, and they only took on Oral Roberts in the bubble. This year's team is a primarily young one, and according to coach Tom Russ, they've been lucky to escape injuries so far this season. Only a couple of injuries could really knock them out of contention in the Big Eight. This team this year includes 2 new transfers, Ann Cooper from Wisconsin and Kim Vincent from California. You see them there. They were both seeded #1 at their respective schools, and they have added depth and talent to this team. The women's tennis team will be on the road this week during spring break, playing Newport and San Diego, among other teams.
Okay, good to see the women's tennis team doing well.
It's very good. It's very good to see them doing well. And we have some more football news for you, Andrew.
Tell us all about it.
I will do that. Wade Phillips would love to have Charles Johnson in the draft next month. Unfortunately, CJ is expected to go as high as the 7th pick overall. Unfortunately, the Broncos traded their first-round pick to Minnesota last year in a deal for offensive lineman Gary Zimmerman. So Denver turned to the free agent market to search for a set of soft hands. 4 of the hands that came to town this week used to catch balls just a short distance from Mile High Stadium. Mike Pritchard, the Atlanta Falcons restricted free agent, and Jeff Campbell of the Detroit Lions expressed a great deal of interest in returning to Colorado. Pritchard has started for the Falcons the last 2 years, and Campbell has been a utility player in Detroit. Chances diminished that the 2 players would return Wednesday when the Broncos offered Pro Bowler Tim Brown a 4-year, $11 million deal. The former Notre Dame star and Heisman Trophy winner has not signed the offer as of today.
And you've got to think that Pritchard's going to end up somewhere if he doesn't end up with the Falcons. He has really become one of the upper echelon receivers in the game.
This is true, and the fact that he's a restricted free agent means that Denver would have had to give up a first-round pick and I think a third or fourth round pick for him too. And that thing is, unless Denver worked to deal with Atlanta for another player, they probably wouldn't see Pritchard back in Colorado because they don't have that first-round pick.
Exactly. Okay, time for another quick break, and when we come back, for you viewers on Channel 8, we're going to come back and wrap up the show. For Channel 53, we've got Seal Berry coming up. So stay with us. Back right after this.
East Africa is not where most American couples might settle. But most aren't like Peace Corps volunteers Anita and Jim Powell's. They're teaching fish farming in a race against hunger, helping people to survive today's problems and tomorrow's. There'll be fish in the ponds and protein in the diets. No matter what your skill, you don't know how much you have to offer until you offer it. Take home a world of experience and leave behind something that will last for generations. Peace Corps, the toughest job you'll ever love.
The stakes are high. 1 out of 3 employees may have high blood pressure. Uncontrolled high blood pressure can cause heart attack, stroke, and kidney failure, and a whopping 29 million lost workdays each year. The Red Cross can help save those workdays and save lives. Right in the workplace, we can screen, refer, and educate employees about high blood pressure control. Get the lowdown.
Welcome back to the CU Sports Magazine. I'm Carol Callan with University of Colorado women's basketball coach Seal Berry, National Coach of the Year. Congratulations. Shelly Sheets also is picked as an All-American. This is such a stressful time of year. Have you had a chance to reflect on this honor that you just learned about yesterday and what it means to you and your program?
Well, Greg Johnson from the camera told me yesterday at the high school tournament, and Shelly was over there, and we found out that Shelly was All-American on that team. So it was kind of neat just to hear that. I mean, it's a tremendous honor. It really is. And it's kind of, I think it's somewhat a reflection on the 11 years of the program, not necessarily just this year. I'm real happy for Shelly. I hope this is the first step towards the Kodak All-American honor for her.
It'd be nice to savor it, but we have other things to deal with, like an NCAA tournament coming up. We also want to spend some time looking at the Missouri game. It's tournament time. Dreams do come true. And for Missouri, what underdog situation wouldn't love it? They come in as the number 7 seed. They come in with a losing record. They come in and they upset the number 2 seed, the number 3 seed, and Monday night you get to play them. We have some highlights of the game, but before we look at those, what's going through your mind now a couple days later in terms of the way Missouri played, the way your team responded?
Well, I think in terms of how Missouri played, you got to give them all the credit in the world. I really feel like from a coaching standpoint, Joanne Rutherford did an exceptional job of keeping her team confident, of having them up and ready for the tournament, getting through Kansas, then beating, I mean, when you beat the 1, 2, and 3 seed in the tournament, I thought they played great. As far as we're concerned, we started off, we're streaky as we have been all year. We started off strong. We kind of let up a little bit in the first half, and then overtime period was not a good 5 minutes for us.
Let's look at the highlights. We start in the first half. You began the game really pretty strong. Your guard play was pretty good. You forced some turnovers. You really got things moving. You rebounded well. Everything kind of looked pretty good. Talk a little bit about the first streak. You go up 8 points. How did you feel at that point?
Well, I felt great at that point. Right here you see Shelly Sheets on back-to-back buckets with Aaron Scholes. Missouri is patient in their offense. They set a lot of screens there. They throw the ball out of bounds. Our defense, we're looking confident, playing together, as a team, forcing a 5-second call right there. Our goal defensively was to really be physical with them, bump cutters, get a hand in passing lane, make some steals. Jamila makes a nice layup here. And we felt pretty good at this point.
Did you get to a point where you felt like maybe the intensity, you couldn't maintain it, and therefore you couldn't keep them defensively away and continue to force those turnovers, or do you think they made an adjustment? There's a steal by DC.
Well, I think it's a matter of them adjusting to our pressure. I don't think their coach was happy with the turnovers that they made, and I think once they settled down and started going to their strengths, which was inside to Nikki Smith and Erica Martin, Desiree Wallace, once they started settling down, we began to get into foul trouble. And I think when you get into foul trouble, the fouls are going against you, whether they're legitimate or not, that's not up for debate, but I think the foul trouble had us a little bit more hesitant.
The foul trouble, and they actually had out-rebounded you also in the first half. They just seemed to be around the basket a little bit more than you.
Well, we go with 3-guard lineup. They go with a 3-post lineup, and that's a problem for us. Desiree Wallace at 6'1" at the small forward is a big body. She's a senior. To match up with her, my best option was Lori Weathers. You got a freshman going against a senior. And I think that was a little bit of an advantage for them, or they'd have Andrea Seamer. DC Thomas is a guard at 5'8", and really is not a mix-it-up type. She's more of a finesse-type guard. I think that position right there, you almost give up 9 rebounds.
You knew you were in a dogfight. You knew that you'd had a lead. You'd played pretty well during the first half, and yet they were within 2. Were you uneasy at halftime?
Oh, absolutely. All of our games with Missouri all year, and in my entire career, I've never felt as if Missouri is, an automatic W on your schedule, whether they're in an off year or it's an on year. Our teams always play man-to-man, and they're always very post-oriented. So in a man-to-man situation, they're going inside. So I didn't feel comfortable at all. I felt like we were going to have to come out and play as aggressively as we possibly could and do a better job on the boards.
Let's look at the second half now. Again, in the second half, you really had many opportunities to take a lead, extend it. You played pretty well in some cases, but once again, the foul trouble started to get to you.
Yeah, I thought Missouri kind of regrouped. I know Joanne had made a comment after the game that they felt like they were beating us in every statistic at halftime but the scoreboard. And I think they got some confidence there. Shelley has a nice feed inside. Missouri was in a matchup zone, and trying to force us to take outside shots, and there's one by Jamila. But while they're going inside and we're shooting outside shots, it eventually wore us down, I think.
Your inside game played pretty well. You'd seem to create some opportunity. It seemed like you spread them out a little bit, but yet consistently down towards the end, they started to rebound better and maybe score a little bit better.
I think the highlight we just saw, the rebounding, the lack of blockout. We stood around a lot on the defensive end of the floor, and they really attacked. It was a dogfight. It was a typical championship game. Nobody's going to ease up.
Let's talk a little bit. With 3 minutes left, you had an 8-point lead, and then Erica Martin just seemed to take over. She really had about 8 points with 20 minutes, or with about 5 minutes left, and then she ended up with 20 points.
Erica Martin has the ability. There's Lori Weathers with a really great individual effort. I thought she did a great job just hanging on to the ball here. But Martin, yes, I thought she led them, and she's their leading scorer throughout the year. I thought she had a lot of intensity, never quit. And on the other hand, with 3 minutes left in the game, we didn't protect the lead well at all. We're up 8 with 3 minutes left. We should win the ball game. I was very disappointed after the game, not so much in we lose the game as how we lose the game. Here's a miss of a shot, goes off the backboard or off the top of the backboard, so the clock stops. You don't even get the balls to bounce your way. It gives them a chance to come down, and the end play here where they get to tie it up. Yeah, you'll see right here, we should have gotten off the floor. They call a foul right there. Should have been a 1-on-1. I think she gave him a 2-shot foul, which I wasn't quite clear on. That added pressure that you have in a 1-on-1 situation, but it gave her a 2-shot foul. She nails them both, and we're in overtime without Jamila Lang. It was just a tough ending to a ball game that we played well enough for 37 minutes. It was just a tough way to lose.
Go back to those last 3 minutes. If you could play it differently now in your mind and go back to it, do it differently, what would you have done differently?
Oh, absolutely. With 3 minutes left in the game, with an 8-point lead, the way I look at it, if we would have dribbled the clock out in 3 30-second possessions, and they would have scored 3 times in 3 30-second possessions, we still would have won. We come out of the timeout and shoot a 3-pointer with no timing elapsing. I don't understand that. I just don't. We've got players who have a lot of experience, and they should know better than to take shots with no time off the clock.
Could you sense, as you're in the timeout now preparing for overtime, that the emotion was drained from your team? Did you get the sense that Missouri, that obviously gave Missouri the momentum they needed, or did you feel at this point that you still could pull this thing out?
I felt like the momentum was with Missouri. They had come from behind to score 8 straight points. The momentum was undoubtedly with them and with Jamila fouling out. So we have 3 freshmen, Taisha and Reagan and Aaron, against pretty experienced veteran front line. I felt like the odds were probably with them.
Well, let's look at the overtime and see what happens. They play pretty well. You trade baskets. You've got things going back and forth. They find an open Erica Martin. It's kind of like a replay. Talk a little bit about, as you're going through this now, what you're thinking.
Well, I felt like Reagan had set the bench most of the game. She is still coming off of her injury and hasn't practiced. I felt like we were, going to be in trouble on the defensive end of the floor. Reagan's a pretty strong player on the offensive end of the floor. DC really steps up right here, she hits the bank shot, and then Reagan follows up, gets the foul. This is a big play for us. I think Reagan hits both these free throws and ties it up. But Missouri wasn't going to give up. I felt like defensively was where we would struggle, not as much offensively. And I believe we gave up 17 points in the overtime.
In the end, really, when it comes down to, for Missouri, Stacey Williams hits a 3 here that just kind of, you tie it up, you work hard to tie it up, and yet we're going to have a 3-point play here eventually by DC Thomas. You kind of, again, stay into it, but it really does go down to free throws by Missouri and rebounds.
Yeah, well, once we got behind, you end up having to foul more times than you want. Here, I know Shelly hits a three at some point around here. Maybe this one is, yeah, that one's it. But, it's tough. It's tough to come from 7 points behind and catch up in an overtime situation.
What was most disappointing to you about this loss?
How we lost the game. I think that we worked hard enough to win the game, to have an 8-point lead and not to be able to protect the lead. It's not that we didn't play well in the overtime or that they weren't hustling. I just felt like that we didn't use our head when we did have an 8-point lead. I thought that we got a little impatient on shots, and this has been a problem for our team all year. Shooting is the most important thing to some of our players, and shooting really is not as valuable, I think, as some other parts of the game.
Lesson learned?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a good lesson learned for all the players. And if this had to happen, it might be better that it happened in a Big 8 situation rather than an NCAA tournament situation.
Just a few days removed, what's your response and your team's response been so far? You're a competitive group. How have they come back from this?
Oh, I think they're anxious. They're very anxious to play in the tournament. Wednesday night, March 16th, 7 o'clock. They will be ready to go. We had a practice this morning. We had to get on the floor early because of the high school games that are going on in the event center. They were all out there at 5:50, ready to start practice, and they put in a good hour and a half before going to class today. And I talked with them about attitude. It's important for us to stay up and be together when we play next week.
Well, we certainly have a lot more to come. We'll be back after this short commercial break.
Another summer. Another dance.
How you doing?
Another song. Another hug.
Good game, man. Don't worry about it.
Another date. Another moment.
When you give blood, you give another chance.
Vince, remember how we got our jobs telling people to buckle up?
Yeah, it seems just like yesterday.
Next.
To buckle or not to buckle?
Next.
The band.
Next. We are never going to find a safety belt spokesperson.
Let's get buckled.
Yeah, we've helped save thousands of lives.
But some people still don't buckle up. So let's hit it.
You could learn a lot from a dummy. But
Being a Division I basketball player just is one of the most difficult challenges for a college student. And Rob Moody had a chance to spend some time with Reagan Scott last week talking about her adjustment to Division I basketball.
For the average college freshman at CU, going to class, worrying about grades, and getting a lift to the ski slopes on Saturday present the biggest problems and headaches. If you're a freshman basketball player, however, things are a lot different.
And then I spend the day going to classes, and then I usually grab a bite to eat around 11 and come in and get treatment on my foot, and then there's practice for about 2.5 hours if we're lucky, and then there's scouting, and then we eat dinner, and then we study.
Do you ever skip class? Are you guys ever allowed to skip class?
No, we are not allowed to skip class. We are, if we do and we get caught, we're in serious trouble. There's running punishment. You could be out of a game. You could be, there's all kinds of punishments they have for us, but we need to go to class pretty much because we're on the road a lot, so every day that we can, we need to be there.
So it's not like normal college freshmen, if they decide not to go to class, they just don't go?
Right, we can't just sleep in if we're a little bit tired. We got to go to class.
Skipping class is the least of Reagan Scott's worries. She also has to deal with the pressure of being on a nationally ranked basketball team.
The pressure I feel, I think, is different from Aaron and Jamila's because I need to come in off the bench and contribute right away. They have some time to get in the flow of the game, and I've got to get in there right away, step up on defense, step on offense. But the pressure, you can either fold or you can step up, and I try and step up every time.
Coming out of high school where you were kind of a big fish in a little pond and coming to the University of Colorado, ranked 3rd in the country, and suddenly it's reversed. You're a little fish in a big pond. How does that affect you mentally?
Well, I've always been a big fish in a little pond, but mentally it really helps. It really makes you step up. You've got to be mentally tough, and you've got to be, your mind can't be wandering at any time because there's a reputation you have to uphold, and I think we've done that pretty well so far, considering we're all freshmen too.
So throw in not being able to skip class and the pressures of playing for a nationally ranked basketball team. Does Reagan Scott experience any of the normal feelings a college freshman does? Does she ever get homesick?
Yeah, I have a big family, and they're real important to me, and I miss them. My parents come up for all the home games, and I miss seeing the little brothers and sisters, but I call them about twice a week, and they call me, and it's hard, but I get through it. The team helps you.
It's a long season, and you never get a chance to go home.
No, we got to go home for a couple days over Christmas break. We were on the road for, I think, 3 weeks straight. We was able to spend part of Christmas Day with the family, and then we came back here, had practice on Christmas Day. So there's not much time to see the family at all.
And so what does Reagan Scott want to do 3 years from now when she graduates from CU with a degree in journalism?
I really would like to become like Cheryl Miller. She's done everything that I would like to do. She played college ball, Kodak All-American, MVP, went and played European ball. Then she was a commentator. Not only was she a commentator for women's games, but she did guys' games with like Dick Vitale. And then she won gold medals in the Olympics too. And then she came and she coached. And, I'm hoping that my college career will totally, it's kind of an added bonus into getting a job, into commentating. And so hopefully I can go take that same path Cheryl did.
Well, it's obvious that Reagan Scott has some natural material to work with in terms of being a commentator. She was highly recruited. She was an All-American in high school. Lots of schools wanted her. Many people came to her home and told her how great she was. She comes here, boom, all of a sudden she's alone. It's hard work. She's got to keep up with her studies. What do you as a coach, a Division I coach, do to make those highly recruited athletes adjust to college basketball?
Well, each player is different. In Reagan's situation, when we were recruiting her, high school coach said Reagan likes to get to know her coach and spend some time, come around the office and talk to you. Reagan would not feel comfortable going into a school where the coach had kind of a closed-door policy and the coach wasn't friendly. And so Reagan, in between classes, you'll see her in our office. She'll sit down, watch videotape, or come in and eat candy out of the coach's office. She likes that off-court time. And I think that's helped Reagan, especially with her injury, where she hadn't been able to get on the court as much as she's capable of. But she's a neat kid. She really is.
Do freshmen need that attention more than upperclassmen, or is this something that's a continuing saga?
Well, that also depends on the player also. Shelly Sheets was a lot like Reagan when she was a freshman. She'd be in the office a lot. But I think as they get older, they kind of, meet their own friends and start to stay away from the office a little bit less. But when they're freshmen, their first semester, they're in almost every single day. But it's fun for us. I mean, we need to see them off the floor.
It's not easy being a Division I basketball player. And when we come back, we'll find out one of the ways that they get better at their game.
The search for the right food is like a journey into unknown territory. Will you find something that's good for you? How do you know what you should eat? The Red Cross can guide you through the mysterious jungle of nutrition and help you decide the right path to travel. Follow the Red Cross course that presents a new way to learn about food, health, and diet that is right for you. Go exploring with the Red Cross. Learn about better eating for better health. Call your Red Cross chapter.
Children believe what their parents tell them.
You're pathetic. You can't do anything right.
You disgust me. Just shut up.
You can't be my kid.
You're worthless.
Hey, stupid, don't you know how to listen?
You're never going to amount to anything.
Why don't you go find some other place to live?
Words hit as hard as a fist. Stop and listen to what you're saying. You might not believe your ears.
I wish you were never born.
Take time out. Don't take it out on your kid.
Practice, practice, practice. There is no substitute for hard work. And one of the things that Silberry and her staff do is to provide opportunities for young kids as well as old to develop their basketball skills through the use of the University of Colorado basketball camps. Sil, you've done this for a number of years. You continue to do it. Most people probably think all you do outside the season is recruit. But these basketball camps are really important to you and, quite honestly, to the youth of Colorado.
Well, the basketball camps are kind of part two of what we do. We really enjoy them. We have 3 camps every summer. This year we're going to have a camp for 6, 7, 8, and 9-year-olds called the Little Dribblers. We're just going to have them come during the mornings and not stay in the dorm. But it's really an opportunity for the kids, I think, to interact with the college players. These kids come to the games, high school kids, junior high, they're at the games. They want to get to know Reagan Scott. They want to get to know Lori Weathers or Shelly Sheets. And when they come to camp, Shelly's down teaching a little 7-year-old how to dribble. They stay in the dorms with them. Our kids are the counselors. And it's good, I think, for our players as well because they're in a position of responsibility. It gives them an opportunity, I think, to work and earn a little bit of extra money. But the camps have been a good situation for us.
So many of your fans are younger kids. Little kids just love coming to the women's games. And there's another clientele there too, which is high school basketball players. What kinds of camps do you have for the high school basketball players?
Well, we have a camp called the Champ Camp, and the Champ Camp brings in specifically sophomore, juniors, and seniors who are a little bit more advanced in their skills. They've already been through the basic dribble right hand layup, dribble left hand layup. So the Champ Camp is for the older player. The Fundamentals Camp is for the, say, 13, 14-year-old player who's still learning parts of the game. So we try to accommodate all levels.
What's a typical day look like when you come to camp? It's obviously you can either spend the night or you can be a day camper. But when they show up at 9 o'clock in the morning ready to go, what happens?
Well, usually the first thing that we do, we bring all the campers together. They meet with their coaches. We may have 40 coaches or so for one session. We stretch them out together, and then we go off into specific groups. And one group may work on dribbling, passing, shooting. Another group might work on defensive position, boxing out, rebounding, some things like that. We have competitions. We have 3-on-3 competitions. We teach them how to play these competitions. We have free throw shooting contests, outside shooting contests. They watch films. They watch some highlight films. We keep them pretty busy all day. There's not a lot of swimming and tennis at our camp.
It's interesting because being, again, a former high school basketball coach, I always felt like the best camp in the state, or the best camp for me in the nation to go to get my players to develop was the Silberry camp, and it was because the amount of attention that your coaches gave to those kids. Who actually are the coaches at these camps?
Well, we hire a lot of coaches from around the state. A lot of high school coaches come in. We also get some Division II college coaches. Always our players. In every year that we've had a camp, our players are very anxious. Many of them are here for summer school. And I would say I rely on my players as much as the other high school coaches to teach some of the things that we do every day. I'm there when I'm in town. If I'm out of the country, then obviously I'm not there. But camp is something. If I'm in town, I'm not going to be out on the golf course when our camp is going on. If camp is going on, I'm over at the field house with them and teaching them and working with them. And I think that's our obligation. If we're there, then we're going to give everything that we can.
Development is one purpose of the camps, but another one that I think is creeping in more and more is that kids go to camps if they want to get recruited by you. Do you find a lot of recruits or kids that are interested in playing at Colorado coming to your camp?
Well, let's see. We had Lori Weathers was at our camp. Aaron Scholes was a camper. Mindy Henry was a camper. Cheryl Woodford from 2 or 3 years ago was a camper. Sharice King was. Holly Stanish was. So I'd say yes to that answer, that question.
It's interesting, the carryover. The more information people know about your team, the more interest there is. If they want to get more interest about the University of Colorado basketball camps, they can contact your office at 492-6086 and get a brochure and sign up for the camp.
Yeah, we'd love to have them.
It's also interesting to carry over into your fan support. People come a lot once they've had any kind of contact with you. And we have an interesting segment coming up called Ask the Coach, where we've asked a couple of fans to maybe try their hand at the interview process, and we have 5 questions that are going to be approaching. And the first one will be from, I don't know that we actually have their names. I think they're going to be identifying themselves. And
Women's play a few times. It looks like they can play with anyone. Do you think the loss in the Big 8 championship could have served as a wake-up call before the NCAAs?
Absolutely. I think that may be the best thing that had happened to us, because we lost because we didn't do some things, some basic fundamental things correctly. And if we had to lose a game, it might be better prior to the NCAA tournament. I know our focus today at practice was excellent.
Do you worry about peaking at the right time?
I don't know. Peaking is a funny thing. I mean, you hope to get better all the time. I'd like to think that my team steadily gets better and doesn't have peaks and valleys.
Next question.
Well, I just wanted to know what she thinks about the contract renewal on Joe Harrington.
Well, I think for any program, whether it be a football, men's basketball, women's basketball, you need some continuity. And I think Joe understands the recruiting situation at Colorado much better than he did probably his first couple of years here. And I know he's anxious to get out and going. So I think it's a good move by Bill Marolt to keep the continuity there. Joe has 2 new assistants, and Scott Sanderson and Ricardo Patton, and I think they're really going to get out and get after it.
There's so much stress in being a coach. How important is that support of your athletic director?
I think when you get the support of your athletic director, it gives you a renewed confidence and a renewed enthusiasm. And I think absolutely that's what Joe needs, and that's what he's gotten from Bill. I think it's a good positive move for the athletic department, for the university.
Next question.
Team. Well, my name is Piper Osborne, and I played basketball in high school, and I was just wondering what your expectations are for the '94 season in the NCAA.
Well, I would expect that we would get to a regional tournament, and I'm not sure exactly where that regional tournament will be. I would think that we'll be either at Stanford or Texas, but we have to win 2 home games next week before we can get to the regional tournament. Once we get to the regional, I think that depends on who we're playing, how we're playing, where we are as a team.
Does it concern you in terms of being possibly on Stanford's home floor?
Yes, I don't particularly care to be on Stanford's home floor. I think they would have the psychological advantage with us having beaten them last year in Missoula on a neutral floor. I'd hate to take 7, 8 young players into Stanford and have to play Stanford on their home floor. I'd rather go someplace else and play them on a neutral floor.
Next. Last question.
Seal, Rich Castro, CU Intramural Program. You did the Kickoff Classic 5K on Labor Day. Will you do the Boulder this year to complete the big double here in Colorado?
Well, now, Rich, you know that I had to walk that Kickoff Classic because of my Achilles injury. I might do the Boulder. Actually, I think I'm going to be in Australia. Fortunately, I think I'm going to be in Australia.
You are. We might mention that Seal Berry is going to be on the World Championship coaching staff for the United States this year. She'll be an assistant coach for Tara Vanderveer, and we might also congratulate you on that. Obviously, all of the honors mean that you know what you're doing. How do you deal with the stressful schedule, the stress of trying to prepare a team, the media, everything? How do you balance your life in respect to exercise and coaching?
Well, I think, it's gotten so big. Everything has just expanded over the years, and I think I'm just learning that I have to say no to some requests. I try to accommodate everyone, and sometimes I've learned that I've got to learn how to say no. I can't do everything that everybody asks me to do, so I think I'm getting a little bit better at that.
What's it going to take to do well in this NCAA tournament?
Well, I think the things that Missouri did are some things that we need to do. We need to box out and rebound better, and we've got to be a better free throw shooting team. We're not going to go far shooting 64 or 65% from the free throw line.
Well, Coach, good luck. The draw comes out this weekend. We'll be very interested to see where you end up. We'll be back to the CU Sports Magazine following this commercial.
We are the dummies crashing on through, busting our heads just for you. My name is Vince. This job makes me sore. If you'd buckle up, I wouldn't do it no more.
They call me Larry. I'm a dummy too. When you don't buckle up, the dummy is you.
Buckle that belt.
These are professional dummies. Do not attempt this at home.
Buckle that, buckle that, buckle that belt. That's one thing to say, and we know we're not wrong. When you go for a ride, put your safety belt on.
Let's go. I'm driving.
Don't drive drunk. No, 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 no. Drive drunk. No, 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 no. Drive drunk. Woman's against strong drivers, man.
Come on, Mark. Let me drive. Mark, last time, give me the keys.
No way!
What kind of friend are you? Look, give him the keys.
I thought the food was pretty good. Well, that's what parties are for, to eat and drink. If you can't do that, why go?
Right.
I wonder if the kids are okay. I wonder how their party was. That was a really cool party.
Yeah, it was cool. Well, except for...
Hey, I told you, lay off my brother.
Are we home yet?
The little dude wants to party with the big boys tonight.
Although Boris was putting them away like he was still in college.
Hey, so who's counting,
Eyes on the road, okay? Will you watch the road?
I'm watching the road, okay?
Maybe he did have too much to drink.
Oh, I'm sure he's all right.
So, Joe, what were you drinking?
Hey, so who's driving up there?
all right, I'm fine.
I'm fine.
You know that curve, it sneaks up on you.
Do you want me to drive?
Look, I haven't been drinking anything, okay?
Besides, we'll be there in a couple of minutes.
Besides, I'm not going to let anything happen to us.
I have to get home anyway. Don't forget about that intersection up here.
I know.
We're only a few minutes away anyway.
Hey, did I ever tell you guys about the time the owner and I went to Atlantic City?
Well, that's what parties are for, to eat and drink. If you can't do that, why go?
Welcome back to the CU Sports Magazine. Let's change pages, shall we, and talk a little rock climbing. That's right, Todd, rock climbing. We don't talk enough about that. It's always been a popular sport with CU students, but as CU Sports Magazine's Megan Prater tells us, there's more to it than just going up the mountain.
El Dorado Canyon is one of the most popular places to rock climb in Boulder. For every 100 people who climb in places like this canyon, 400 are injured and 18 die. This year, as the weather begins to warm up, climbers are breaking out their equipment and heading for the hills. But before they scale up that expert route, they must know the proper safety techniques and use the right equipment. Sometimes that includes a helmet.
Helmets are really mostly to protect you against rock fall, lacerations and such, though occasionally they might protect your head from an impact if you're going to swing into a corner or something.
Granny's been climbing for 15 years and has suffered some injuries.
I laid my ankle open here in El Dorado a couple of years ago when a bad piece of rock popped.
He's definitely learned from the experience, but there are easier ways. The Boulder Rock Club provides an indoor wall where beginners can get training and experts can fine-tune their techniques.
Well, we try and promote awareness and skills, first and foremost, so that people are learning the basic skills that they need.
But climbers must realize the difference between indoors and outdoors.
People just really need to know that it's really almost two different sports.
And most everyone agrees, outdoors is more dangerous. But being safe doesn't mean you can't have fun on real rock. It does mean paying attention and being responsible. Megan Prater, CU Sports Magazine.
Looks scary. I don't think I could do that.
I don't think I could do it either. I'm a little afraid of heights, and that's just a little too high for me.
You're afraid of everything. Okay, let's go back to basketball. And the women rose to the number 2 spot in the country, as you heard Seal and Carol talk about. There's your top 5. Tennessee still on top of the nation. Colorado at number 2. They're not going to stay there probably. Connecticut at 3. Penn State, who was number 1 earlier a couple weeks ago, at 4. North Carolina at 5. And another Big 8 team, Kansas, at 15.
And Andrew, Seal Berry said earlier that most of the teams in the top 7 or 8 bracket there of the top 10, they only have 2 or 3 losses. And this is going to give the women's team 4 losses, I believe. So that should drop them down probably into the 8-9 spot, I would assume.
True, but there's probably still going to have the 2 home games for the upcoming NCAA tournament. Of course, the seedings will be announced on Sunday, so we'll look forward to that.
Let's go ahead and take a look at the men's top 5 now. And I believe that Arkansas is still on top. Connecticut, UConn Huskies in the 2nd place in Missouri, you know, that number 3 in the country. And they showed it today with the win over Colorado, North Carolina, and Duke staying at 4 and 5. And the Big 8's representation, 2nd one there, Kansas at 11.
So you could actually send 4 or 5 teams to the NCAA tournament, including Nebraska and Oklahoma, depending on how they do in the Big 8 tournament. So it should be another good year for the Big 8.
And how much the selection committee likes them.
That's right.
Let's go ahead and look at the Big 8 tournament going on in Kansas City right now. Missouri and Colorado, you see there, we showed that to you earlier, 62-60. And a little bit earlier in the day, Nebraska beat Oklahoma 105-88. And Eric Piatkowski, Nebraska's star player, scored 42 points in that game, Andrew.
And that might just about do it for Oklahoma's shot at going to the NCAAs. They're probably looking more likely at an NIT appearance.
And they still did it. They had a good year, so that would be, I think that would be a win for their team still. We're going to go ahead and take a break here on the CU Sports Magazine, and we'll be back in just a moment.
National Guard and Reserve, 44% of our nation's defense just wouldn't be there. So be a hero. Give your employees the freedom to protect ours.
A brand new house. A job he's held for 5 years. A marriage that's lasted 10. Cocaine really is expensive. Look what it almost cost this man. He's getting help at a drug rehabilitation center. They got help from the United Way. All because the United Way got help from you. The United Way. It brings out the best in all of us.
Welcome back to the CU Sports Magazine.
That is all we have for you today. You can see us on Channel 53 every week at 5:30 on Friday and noon on Saturday, and on Channel 8, Boulder's channel, at 3:30 on Thursday and 7:30 Saturday night. For Andrew Rivera, I'm Todd Geary. Thanks for joining us on the CU Sports Magazine.